Welcome to another Cuke Archives mini podcast. This is vignette number 9 from Zen Is Right Here. Once in a lecture, Suzuki Roshi said, "We should practice zazen like someone who is dying. For him, there is nothing to rely on. When you reach this kind of understanding, you will not be fooled by anything." So that's from me, David Chadwick, Sokoji, 1969. Sokoji was the temple he came to be the priest of in America, where he stayed until November of 1969 before moving to the San Francisco Zen Center, City Center. You know, zazen is sometimes called dying on the cushion. And the type of death and rebirth that spiritual practice encourages is one where the body doesn't die. To experience death before your body dies. But Suzuki would emphasize practice over enlightenment. In other words, he would emphasize practice over dying on your cushion, but not to the exclusion of it. There are teachers, especially those who worked with koans. I won't just say Rinzai, because the Harada Yasutani line, which was very popular back then, and which came from Soto Zen, was still Soto Zen, but emphasized working with koans, not just studying them, but working with them and using them to break through, to die on the cushion. Some teachers in that lineage were very fierce, especially Yasutani, who would say, die on the cushion, and just drive people in sesshin to have an awakening experience. They were calling that kensho, an eye-opener. But Suzuki didn't have that type of approach. His approach was to emphasize daily practice that you wouldn't burn out on. He said, some of you will get enlightened and some of you won't, but it doesn't really matter. If you're practicing, it's about the same. He wasn't so cut and dried, You go, what did he mean by that? But, die on the cushion. Practice as if your head was on fire. I mean, those teachings have a meaning, but I think they should be taken in balance. Like there's the story of the monk who held the knife to his heart and said if he didn't attain enlightenment in the next, that evening or the next hour or something, that he would stab himself in the heart. So I do not like Zen stories like that, or about, Bodhidharma's disciple. What was his name? Huike, Daizu Huike. Huike came to him and fervently wanted to practice with him, and Bodhidharma wouldn't pay any attention to him, and he sat out in the snow. Bodhidharma still wouldn't, so he cut off his arm and brought it to Bodhidharma, and then he accepted him. Well, that's a story that grew and grew. But I know translators, historians who've who've spent time in those areas and looked at all sorts of different writings, and they'd say, you know, that they don't think that happened, no, and they don't think Bodhidharma cut his eyelids off so that he wouldn't sleep. Those extreme stories, they shouldn't. I'm against them, because there will be those people that take them literally, and it's very easy to take it literally. You know, it's a simple, literal story of something you can actually do. I will give you an example. Philip Kapleau had very extreme teachings, and he studied with Yasutani, and his Zendo in Rochester. You don't hear about this much. What you hear about is all the sex scandals. But Kapleau's group, they were fairly violent with each other, and screaming and hitting each other. And I've heard some pretty disturbing stories there. And the most disturbing is this student who vowed that he would shoot himself in the head if he didn't get enlightened that evening. So he shot himself in the head and died. And that story was told to me by one of Kapleau's ordained monks. So yes, we want to have a death of the ego and to be reborn in this life. I wouldn't assume we know what that means. Just practice. Just apply oneself to waking up, to not being enslaved by the thought stream. You study, your teachers, everybody has their own way. And I urge you not to get too fanatic. Okay. So this has been another Cuke Audio mini podcast. And I'm DC, Poobah of Cuke Archives, wishing you a great awakening.